And we are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be. And of course, however you may be listening. Believe it or not, we are at the end of the regular season. This is indeed the last regular season game for the Iowa Hawkeyes, and it could not hold more significance, more importance if I were able to cook it up myself at the beginning of the year. The Iowa Hawkeyes will be facing the Nebraska Cornhuskers at home in a game that, if the Iowa Hawkeyes win, will put them in the Big Ten championship game and will name them Big Ten West titles for a second year in a row. So you've guessed it. This is, of course, the Iowa versus Nebraska game preview. I have had you guys covered every step of the way since the beginning of the season and going back to last year as well. Every game this season has had a game preview. You guys are the best fans in the world, Iowa fans, that is. But before we get into the game preview, I want to ask you guys to like, comment, share, and of course, subscribe. It takes 1.25 seconds. If you guys want to donate to the channel, as many of you have, to support your boys' coffee habit, you can click on the donation sign on this video. And without further ado, let's get into this. I mean, folks, I can hardly believe it myself that we are already at the end of the season. Man, time flies. And this has been a season for the Iowa Hawkeyes for the books. I mean, it really, really has. I am not sure that there has been a team with a worse offense to have the type of season that Iowa has had. Now, I will say, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. Things are looking good. They definitely are. But the reality is that all of this will mean nothing unless Iowa wins. Now, if they don't win, they still have a chance of making it to the Big Ten title game. But I think, and I think most Iowa fans will agree with this, making it at an 8-4 mark and a 6-3 conference mark is way better than a 7-5, 5-4 season. I mean, that would basically just be a huge mark on the Big Ten West as a whole. So I don't want that. I want, a decent Iowa team, that has an excellent, elite, historic defense and very, very solid special teams with an 8-4 record with a chance to win 9 games playing in the Big Ten championship game. At least it's somewhat respectable. So this is absolutely has been a crazy season. For Nebraska, they fired Scott Frost. I told you guys going into the season that Scott Frost was on the hot seat. I said Scott Frost was on the hot seat last year. Scott Frost was given, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this because he's already gone, but he was given a significant amount of time and leeway to correct anything he needed to correct to make Nebraska a contender. And it just didn't happen. Nebraska had losing seasons under Scott Frost. I'm not really sure where you go if you're a Nebraska fan, because you look around the Big Ten West and the teams that have had success have been teams with relatively, stable, vanilla, just solid head coaches, solid coaching staffs, good guys who build good programs, solid cultures, as opposed to the sexy hire. And I think Nebraska has definitely gone after the sexy hire multiple times. And I'm not going to answer this question right now, but I think the question that Nebraska fans need to ask themselves, or at the very least have proper reflection on, is whether Nebraska is the type of job that they have been accustomed to it being from, the 90s, early 2000s and 80s, basically any Nebraska period before the modern era. Because you have USC coming in, you have UCLA coming in. I mean, the Big Ten is changing. So they are in a tough spot. In the end, folks, and I'm not going to gloss over this, in the end, sports comes down to who can which team does their thing the best. In other words, which team, when two teams play each other, which team is better at the thing that they do really well? And Iowa football is the perfect example of that. They don't do the status quo, especially when it comes to modern football, in a sexy way, not even close to it. But what they do, they are really, really good at it. They create turnovers. They keep the game close. They don't beat themselves. They have limited penalties. They have a good special teams. They have a good kicker. They have a good punter. They basically have all of the exterior things covered. The things that are on the peripheral, none of the sexy things, just the solid things that you need to have a good football team. They do it really, really well to elite status. And down the stretch, we have seen Iowa be better at their style of football than the other team is at theirs. Now, the losses that they have had outside of Iowa State, that is an anomaly, in my opinion. Ohio State was better at their brand of football than Iowa was at theirs, and Michigan was better at their brand of football than Iowa was at theirs, and they lost. Illinois, I would say it was, very, very close. It was about 50-50, very similar style, and it is what it is. But make no mistake, Iowa still needs to address the offensive position in the offseason, and we need to have some answers. Again, not going to go too far into it because this is a game preview for Iowa versus Nebraska, but just because Iowa has rattled off several straight victories on their way en route to the Big Ten West title and Big Ten championship game overall doesn't mean that those same questions do not require answers. All right, guys. ESPN Football Power Index gives Iowa an 82.9% chance of winning this game. I got to say, I absolutely agree. Nebraska, the players probably just want to get to the offseason, get this season over with. It's on the road. Iowa is a very physical team, and I'm just not sure overall if what would be required for Nebraska to win this game they have. It would require Nebraska to really, really, really want to spoil Iowa's season, which I'm not saying they don't want to. They're Division I athletes, they're competitors, but I also think that they want to get to the offseason and end this miserable season that they have had. Does not mean that Iowa should look past them. Nebraska still has some talented guys on their roster. We look at the quarterback comparison. C. Thompson, 2,129 yards on the season, 14 touchdowns to 10 INTs. Spencer Petras, 1,716 yards, 5 TDs, 5 INTs. Very mediocre season. Rushing yards, A. Grant has 909 yards and 6 TDs. Caleb Johnson has 653 yards, 5 TDs. Receiving yards, Sam Laporta with 601 receiving yards. He had an excellent game against the Golden Gophers, 1 TD. Now, that is certainly a question mark going into this game, is surrounding the health or lack thereof with Sam Laporta. T. Palmer has 878 yards for 7 TDs on the season. Pretty good season for him. Iowa is currently a 10.5 point favorite, with the over and under being set at 38 right now. Here are the team stats. I'll read it left to right. Points per game, 22.5 to 17.5. Points allowed per game, 28.5 to 13.5. Total yards, 345 to 253. Yards passing, 215 to 158. Yards rushing, 129 to 94. So Nebraska is obviously a better offensive team than Iowa is. I mean, 99% of the teams Iowa has played this year are better offensively than they are. Yards allowed, 427 to 273. That's just not going to cut it in the Big Ten if you are a Nebraska fan. Passing yards allowed, 232 to 164. Rush yards allowed, 195 to 108. Here are the last 5 games for both teams. And as you guys can see, Iowa has just been hitting their peak, hitting their stride en route to a Big Ten West title. Nebraska, losing to Wisconsin 15-14, Michigan 34-3, Minnesota 20-13, Illinois 26-9, and Purdue 43-37. Now, the next thing we're going to do is look at the Pro Football Focus grades. I say this every video. I'm not going to show every position. I don't do any position. I'm not leaving anybody out on purpose. I basically pick quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and a few positions on defense. If you want to go and check the PFF grades, you can absolutely do that on your own. But we will look at a few here right now. This is the end. Dun, dun, dun. The Doors. Casey Thompson, he has a pretty good PFF grade, 54th. If Iowa had that, I would take that in a heartbeat if Spencer Petras was rated 54th at quarterback. He's basically been, 200th the entire season. Moving along here. We got running back Caleb Johnson, 119. Anthony Grant, 217. LaShawn Williams, 330. Gavin Williams, 449th. Gavin Williams has not had as productive as a season as I thought he was going to have. I thought he was going to have a pretty solid season. I'm not really sure what has been going on with him. I mean, he's battled injuries and things like that. But, like I said, I thought he was going to have a better season than what we have seen. Next one here, there's quarterback again. We have linebacker. It's kind of out of order here. I'm going to do wide receiver next. Jack Campbell, one of the best linebackers in the country, fifth best grade by PFF. Seth Benson, 20th. So Iowa has two of the top 25 linebackers in the country. For Nebraska, their top guy looks to be Javin Wright, but I'm not sure how much playing time he gets. I took the minimum snap count off, which is why he's being shown. So if that was not there, he would not even be shown. Chris Kolarevic, 654th, and obviously, we keep looking down. Nick Heinrich, 751. That's definitely not going to get it done. Here are the wide receivers. Trey Palmer, pretty good grade for Nebraska. Marcus Washington, 392. Oliver Martin, 626. Interesting tidbit. Oliver Martin, from the state of Iowa, from Iowa City, no less. He played for Michigan first, spurned Iowa. Then he thought he'd go to Iowa and get immediate playing time over guys. That didn't happen. I mean, he saw the field, but it's kind of been the same as his time at Nebraska. I wish he had all the success, that he was kind of hoping for. Coming out of high school, I remember a lot of he was a U.S. Army All-American. He absolutely skyrocketed. Just a phenomenal athlete all the way around. Nico Ragaini is the highest graded wide receiver for Iowa, 661. Arland Bruce, 871. Brody Brecht, 1,026. Not great, obviously, for Iowa at wide receiver. Next, we have the tight end position. Sam Laporta, excellent game. As I said, we'll see what his status is for the game. I believe him and Luke Lachey were the two highest graded tight ends in the country by PFF this past week. It's either the country or the Big Ten, but I'm pretty sure it was the country. Travis Vokalek, Iowa definitely tried to get him. It's worked out either way for Iowa, and it looks like it's worked out for Travis over at Nebraska. But I do remember Iowa trying to get Travis. He, I believe, came from Rutgers. Excellent size, 6'7". He will definitely be somebody to keep an eye on for the Hawkeyes. Luke Lachey, with a grade of 160, and you guys can see the rest there for Nebraska. And the second to last position group, I am going to be showing the cornerbacks. No surprise, Iowa has two of the top 50 cornerbacks in the country, according to PFF. Cooper DeJean, Riley Moss, 36th and 37th. Riley Moss hasn't had the uh, interception laden season that we have grown accustomed to seeing with Iowa DBs, but overall, he has been rock solid. And I really do think that he still has an even higher ceiling to get to because the guy, he has great size all the way around. Great frame. He's 6'1", 6'2", and he is fast as they come. So still really solid season. Sebastian Castro, 281. And here are Nebraska's guys, some pretty low graded guys. Perhaps that's a position group Iowa can attack for against Nebraska. And the last position group, I showed one more than I usually do just because this is the last game of the season. Garrett Nelson looks to be very solid for Nebraska. Lucas Van Ness has had a hell of a season for the Iowa Hawkeyes, especially for how young he is. Joe Evans has also had a really solid season statistically. I'm actually kind of surprised his grade is where it's at. I mean, here's the thing. Joe Evans is what he is. He is a pass rush specialist. His pass rush grade is a 78.8, which makes sense. That's what he is. He is a pass rush guy. John Wagner, the starting DN for Iowa, opposite Joe Evans, 488. Deontay Craig has had a really nice couple of weeks. I am loving his development, and I think he is, definitely set to take one of the starting defensive end spots for the Iowa Hawkeyes. I mean, the good news is for Iowa, they have so much depth on the defensive line. Joe Evans and John Wagner, it looks like they both, definitely Joe Evans will be graduating after this year. John Wagner may still have a COVID year remaining. We'll see. But let's just say they both leave. Iowa has Deontay Craig and Lucas Van Ness, right? There immediately to replace them. And I feel phenomenally about both of them. So that is excellent news. All right, guys, the time you have been waiting for, prediction time. Here it is. Like I said, this is the last game of the season. And this Iowa has everything to play for with this game. Literally everything. It does not get more important than this game. This game is not necessarily important because it's Nebraska or anything like that. It's important, and I'm not saying that disrespectfully to Nebraska. I mean, listen, you guys are 3-8 on the season, okay? I'm not saying that disrespectfully. I'm saying that Iowa, they should not look past Nebraska, but the most important thing that they have to play for is within grasp. All they got to do is win this game. That's all they got to do. And they are going to be juiced. This game is at home. Iowa is playing their best football as a team overall. They found a way to get W's. Now, on the flip side, Iowa, especially this year, tends to keep things close or closer than they should, unfortunately. So, on one hand, I think it's possible Iowa shows up to Kinnick and absolutely door stomps Nebraska, but I also think it's possible that Nebraska competes and Iowa keeps it closer for way longer than it should be. I think definitely both are possible. Either way, I feel very good about Iowa winning their 8th game of the season. There's too much to play for in this game. Nebraska, I just don't think they're up for this game, even though, this is a rivalry game. And, to be blunt, Iowa and Nebraska has blossomed into one of the better rivalries that have been created or promoted and or pushed inorganically than any other rivalries I can think of. Iowa fans don't like Nebraska fans. Nebraska fans don't like Iowa fans. And obviously it is a border state. So a ton to play for here. Iowa can beat Nebraska for, I think, I got to look this up. I think it would be this 6th straight time, but I got to look it up real quick. Here it is. Iowa is on a current 7-game win streak. They have beaten Nebraska since the 2015 season, where Iowa went undefeated. And so they have a chance to beat Nebraska for the 8th straight time. And I do want to pause there to just state, and I've done it in the past before, how impressive it has been, regardless of the offense, that Iowa, they beat Iowa. I know they just lost to Iowa State, but before that, they had beaten Iowa State. I think it was 5 or 6 straight times. They have beaten Minnesota 8 straight times. They beat Wisconsin this year. There's a lot of teams that they have had their number of late. I'm not saying Wisconsin is one of those teams, but Iowa State, Nebraska, Minnesota. Iowa has done a great job having their number and getting it done. So I just wanted to point that out. So Iowa has a ton to play for. This is they're going for their 8th straight victory against Nebraska. Bottom line is Iowa is going to get this W. Too much to play for. They're more physical. I think they're more talented than Nebraska. I said at the beginning of the season that Iowa was the most talented team in the Big Ten West. I said Nebraska was one of the more talented teams. But in the end, it just didn't matter for Nebraska because they've been talented for a long time. Hell, they were one of the most talented teams since Scott Frost, the first moment he arrived on campus, and it didn't equal a ton of victories. But for Iowa, it has. The more talented team, they're the more physical team. They have the better defense. They have the better special teams. And I think Nebraska's defense is so bad that Iowa will find a way to score the points that are necessary to win this game. So I am picking the Iowa Hawkeyes to turn their 8th win of the season in, going 8-4. I think it would be 6-3 in conference play by beating Nebraska 24-10. I think Iowa puts 24 points on the board. They hold Nebraska to 10, and they have a safe double-digit victory. All right, folks, thank you guys so much for listening. I really do want to say thank you to all of you amazing Iowa fans, not just the Iowa fans, even though I'm definitely thanking you guys specifically, but most of the fans around the Big Ten have been respectful and good people. Not always, but it's par for the course with what you do. I hate it when YouTubers get on YouTube and then they start complaining when people say mean things to them. It's par for the course. It happens. But you guys have been the best. This season has been a roller coaster. But nonetheless, we're here vying for a Big Ten West championship game. And I really do appreciate specifically all you amazing Iowa fans who have been with me every step of the way. Donated to the channel, commented on the videos, shared the videos, everything. I could not be more thankful. And so I just wanted to give you guys a nice thank you note on that. All right, guys, last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow and facts our feelings because your feelings don't matter. Love you guys. See you guys next time. Go Hawks. Bye-bye.